Hey everyone, Ross A Prepper here. Today I'm going to be doing a comparison and test of these trauma shears. All these trauma shears are going to be in the description below if you're interested in purchasing them. So we'll start off with this set. This is a set of stainless steel bandage scissors. They're basically same cut as a trauma shear, as you can see by the end there. Somewhat wide. These were $10 off AliExpress. Then we move into this set. It folds up, similar to the Raptor, Leatherman Raptor trauma shears. These ones are a knockoff. They're $30 off AliExpress. They do feature the same features with the window brake, the strap cutter, as well as the O2 wrench. It also has a ring cutter on the backside here, as you can see right there. It's supposed to be a ring cutter and a measuring tape, I guess, and they do fold up, so you fold them up just like that, and it's got a belt hook as well. Then we have the X-Shears. These were $60. These are titanium coated. Purchased these right off the X-Shear website. Then we have your standard trauma shear that most places use. These were $20, but it came in a 2-pack, so basically $10 a piece, and these are off Amazon. And for our control test, we have a basic set of fabric scissors, just to compare the cutting of a fabric scissor compared to a trauma shear. So starting off with cutting, here's a piece of Kleenex. We will do a before and after our testing. And basically, if it tears or pulls, it'll show the sharpness before and after, how good it goes through. So for our test, we have a piece of clothesline wire. This simulates if you're cutting clothing and there's wire like a bra or anything like that. It'll show you. We also have a thicker piece too. This is a bit thicker than the other stuff, so we'll try that. Then we have a nice thick nylon belt we'll be cutting. Set of leather work gloves. Some seat belts in case you actually have to recover someone from a vehicle. And a thick fleece lined jacket. So this is fairly heavy, so try cutting through that. And we'll see how our test goes, and after we cut through all that stuff, we will then do an after cut on the tissue paper. So let's start on the tissue paper. So we're going to use, they're all labeled, so we're going to use the stainless steel bandage scissors first. So I'm already feeling a bit of resistance there, and at the top, but it seemed to cut through pretty good. We'll do one more. Pretty good. So these are fairly sharp. We will now move on to our Raptor trauma shear knockoffs. A little bit of tearing there. Do another cut. And the tip seems to be tearing the tissue paper. As you can see, it's tore it a bit, so the tip's not as sharp. Now, full disclosure, I purchased these all on my own, and I have been using these X-Shears a little bit, so these other ones haven't been used at all. So X-Shear, pretty sharp, no tearing. No tearing whatsoever with the X-Shears. We'll now move on to your standard trauma shear. A little bit of tearing at the tip. And same thing for the second cut. So it's same as the Raptor and the standard. There's some tearing at the tip. And now the last is just your standard fabric scissors. Good cut. Same thing. So all good on your standard fabric scissors. So let's move on to this coat. Depending on what your job is, you may actually have to cut clothing off people or an emergency. So we'll start off with these ones. We'll do one cut each through the sleeves. So I'm already noticing these stainless steel bandage scissors aren't cutting whatsoever. They're not even making, they made a slight cut in the, as you can see, just a bit in the fabric, but not even really into the fleece. So I'm not even going to try any more on them. Obviously they're not going to cut. We will try the Raptor set. That cut cleanly through. So very nice clean cuts the whole way through. So they're nice and sharp. Now we'll go to the X-Shear. Even less effort than the first set. Your standard trauma shear. A little bit of trouble on the first cut. But still sharp enough to cut through. And now your standard fabric scissors. So these ones I'm assuming should cut through. Having a bit of issues here. So cut through. So for this test, I'm definitely going to go X-Shear, Raptor, standard trauma shears, the fabric scissors, and then these bandage scissors, as they didn't even really cut through any fabric. So we'll get rid of that. Next, we're going to go on to the seat belt. So we'll simulate a cutting a seat belt. I'm going to do a few cuts on each seat belt with one set of trauma shears, just to show if you had to cut multiple people out or make multiple cuts. So we'll start off with the stainless set. I'm having a hard time cutting with these. Basically, it cuts good right here, but then once you get into this section, it starts to pull away. Not want to cut, and even now we're having troubles. As you can see, I'm having a lot of difficulty cutting with these ones, so I'm going to call it there, basically 1.5 cuts. We'll use the Raptor ones. Cutting through fairly good. So these ones work very well. 2 cuts and you're through. Now with the X-Shears. Just because these are cutting so good, I'm going to cut through this section here, which has 3 pieces of seatbelt, just to see how good it does. So roughly 4 cuts, but cut through very easy. Now we're going to use this other piece of seat belt with the normal trauma shears. So pretty good, bit more cutting than these two, but still better than the stainless bandage scissors. So now we're going to move on to a fabric scissor. And one more. So comparing these for the seatbelt cut, definitely going to go with the X-Shear again. Then the Raptor. Then I'm actually going to go with the fabric scissors, and they cut a bit better than the standard trauma shears. And then the bandage scissors, or the bandage shears last. Next, we're going to be moving on to a leather work glove. So same order. And just like before, it's cutting, but it's struggling here. It is a bandage shear per se, but I just want to test because it did have the same style cut and everything as a normal trauma shear, so figured it'd work a bit better than that, but you can see it barely cut through half of it. But we'll use these ones. I'll finish that cut there. And this is cutting pretty good through that leather glove. Go the X-Shears. Now these are cutting right through all the leather. I'm not hitting just one piece of leather and fabric. So these X-Shears are very sharp. They just cut through just like butter. Your standard trauma shear. Pretty good. And your fabric scissors. Get one more cut out of that. There, so not bad. So in this test again, X-Shear, the Raptor, your standard trauma shears, fabric scissors, and then last bandage. Then we will move on to this nylon belt. I'm assuming these ones aren't going to cut through. And like stated, they don't cut. Move on to the Raptor. No problem. So, cut through no problem. I think it would be a one cut through this belt if the blades were a bit longer compared to these ones. The X-Shear, they do open up just a bit tad. They are a bit longer, so it does help for cutting. Just one cut. So as you can see, very sharp. Standard shears. I actually have to say these ones almost tie for this round, but we'll check the fabric scissors. So for the nylon belt test, X-Shear for sure. I'm going to put these two for a tie, then your fabric and stainless. And last up, we have the steel wire. So, not even cutting. For the Raptor. Not going to cut through the wire, but I am going to try this ring cutter they have on here. If this wire may not fit in there. No, because there's a bit of a coating on it. So they are not going to cut through. We'll try the X-Shear. So they cut through a bit, but now I'm feeling a bit of resistance on the back half of the scissors. Looks like it took a bit of the edge off. I'm trying to cut through the wire. Standard ones are not even going to cut it. And I'm assuming these fabric ones aren't going to either. No. So none of the trauma shears will cut this very thin a little bit of wire, so I won't tempt the thicker stuff. So now we will go back to the sharpness test. So we will use the stainless steel set again to compare. So right away, big difference from the first cut. The tips are sharp, but the very back of the blades aren't even making a cut in the tissue. And that time it wouldn't even cut the whole way through. You can see there it's still not very sharp, and that's the first cut where it just cut the tip off, or cut through the tip. Let's try the Raptors. So the Raptors seem to have kept the same results as their first cut sharpness test, just pulling a bit on the edges, but you can kind of see it tore a bit at the edge, but same as when we first started. Now the X-Shear, let's see how good they are cutting now. Still very sharp. We'll make one more. Still, I do notice on the tissue paper from cutting that wire when it took a bit of the edge off. I'm not sure if you can see it though, it slightly pulled right at the bottom right there on each cut. It's probably hard to see, but still very sharp. Slight change, but not much. Now I'm going to use your standard trauma shear. And we'll do another cut. So right away it's pulling at the back half, and I assume that's when I tried to cut the wire, but as you can see it pulled a bit right there. And now for the fabric scissor, they cut nice and smooth, no issues. Same thing, perfect. Cut right through, didn't lose its sharpness whatsoever on the standard fabric scissors, which is good. So overall, obviously, probably not going to, out of this list, you're not going to beat the X-Shears. Very sharp, nice and thick. They feel heavy, like you know you got something in your hands, compared to these cheap, flimsy, standard trauma shears. You don't know if it's actually going to cut it or not. Also, these knockoff Leathermans, they're fairly heavy. I don't like how they do have a little bit of wobble in them. I assume that's because they fold up. If someone has the real Raptors. Comment below if they have a bit of a slight wobble to them. But other than that, for $30, I think this is 4 times cheaper than your standard, the real Raptor ones. They held up very well, cut through everything else. Next, your $3 fabric scissors. They worked actually fairly well, surprisingly. Definitely compared to the bandage scissors. I thought these were going to do a lot better. I thought they were going to almost compete with your standard trauma shear, but these wouldn't cut through anything. So if you're thinking about buying any sort of trauma shear and you see these and it says bandage or anything like that, don't buy them. But I will recommend these two for sure, especially the X-Shear. Like, you know, these scissors super sharp, you know, folding a glove over, no problem. Like, just cut the whole thing right in half with like the edge very sharp. You know, you're not going to beat these, I don't think, unless you get real set. But even then, I would probably just go with these. A lot simpler. You don't have 80 things going at once. You know, they're simple. They're made just a straight up cut, not to do pile of different tool or jobs. But while we're here, we will try this cutter they have on the back and just see how sharp it is. And it cut through some of that fabric. So not too bad, but definitely if you're looking for a set of nice trauma shears, X-Shears is the place to go. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you take this advice and pick out the right trauma shear for you. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll have more gear test comparisons and overviews coming up soon. Thanks.